Well, welcome everyone. We're really happy to have you here today with this webinar. And just to give you some buzzwords of what we will be talking today about are, for example, traceability, regulation, transparency, but also increasing expectations from consumers and brands. But we will start by introducing our speakers of today. I am Kim Berthus, and I am happy to guide you through this webinar today with my colleague Julia. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in international business, but also a master's degree in sustainability and systematic management. I've been with a company leadership and sustainability for about 3 years now. I have started as a working student, and after I've been done with my studies, I have started working full-time as a sustainability manager. And together with Julia, I co-lead the supply chain team now. In my role, I manage the different verifications and certification schemes that we have around the world. This includes, for example, the programs like HICFEM, SNCP, ZDHZ, InCheck, and Supplier to Zero, but also Cradle to Cradle and Better Cotton audits. And basically what we help is to make sure that the verifications run smoothly and that they meet the right standards. I am myself mainly responsible for the schemes HICFEM, ZDHZ, Supplier to Zero, and Cradle to Cradle. And we work closely with companies to improve the sustainability in their supply chains, both on the social as well as on the environmental side. That was a quick introduction about myself and my work at LNS. And now I will hand it over to Julia to introduce herself.
Yes, thank you, Kim. Yeah, this is me. I'm Julia. I'm also based in Germany. My academic background lies in geography, economics, but also environmental impact assessment and management. And yeah, since 2023, I think, I'm co-leading the supply chain team with Kim at Leadership and Sustainability. And as she already mentioned, we are basically making sure that all our verification and certification schemes run smoothly and meet the right standards, both internally and externally. Kim already mentioned all our schemes, so I won't repeat that now. But yeah, we work closely with companies to improve sustainability in their supply chains, as also Kim already mentioned, both on the social side, on the environmental side, but also on the chemical side. And yeah, that's basically me. That was my introduction. And we will see, or I will walk you through the second half of that presentation.
Yes, thank you, Julia. Well, before we dive deeper into the topic, I would just guide you through some basics about the Zoom webinar platform. So at first, we would like to mention that the audience will be muted during the whole webinar in order to ensure the best audio quality. And if the group size allows and you have questions, then we may unmute you for a better discussion, but we will see that on a case by case. But anyway, if you have any questions during the presentation, just please use the question function. And at the right-hand side, you can see a screenshot of the question function, and you can click on the button to open the chat window, and there you can type in your question and then just send it to us. And yeah, maybe it's also good for you to know that we will provide you a link to download the presentation in a follow-up email after the webinar. Yeah, and before we continue, please note that these materials and the presentation are copyrighted. They are the property of our company, Leadership and Sustainability. So we please ask you to not copy, distribute, or use them without the permission. Yeah, so here's a quick look at our today's agenda. So we already started with a welcome and introduction, and now we will flow to the motivation for supply chain management towards the first steps on how to start analyzing your supply chain approach. Further, we will introduce some tools and benchmarks for effective supply chain management, and we will also have some very practical looks at how to get ready for the digital product passport. And lastly, we will guide you a bit through our company, what we do, and then we conclude with questions and some time for discussion. So let's now start with the big question. Why does effective supply chain management matter today? Supply chain management today is no longer just about sourcing and logistics, but it's also about responsibility, resilience, and transparency, which are more and more requested by conscious consumers. Strong supply chain management also helps reduce environmental impacts and ensures fair working conditions. The key here is that you can exactly measure and target improvement. It also improves supplier reliability and lowers operational risk. And lastly, supply chain management supports compliance with upcoming regulations. We will have a closer look at the ESPR and DPP later on. Now that we understand why it matters, we will look at how to assess your current situation. A strong supply chain approach aligns with your overall sustainability strategy. So maybe the basis is already laid and you can build on your existing strategy. You don't need to manage everything, but you need to manage what is most relevant. And one advice is to rely on the Global Reporting Initiative. A materiality assessment helps identify which environmental, social, and governance topics are most significant in your supply chain and where your actions will make the greatest impact. So, what are the phases that we will go through when developing a strategy? We will start by assessing the needs and building acceptance for the project. Then we will conduct a materiality analysis to understand where our most significant impacts, risks, and opportunities lie. After that, we can begin with developing the sustainability strategy. Then comes the implementation phase. And finally, at the end, the performance evaluation and reporting. And now let's transfer this general approach to our supply chain. Mapping the supply chain is the basis for all further steps. It is also a prerequisite for assessing opportunities and risk. You can see the steps covering the supplier mapping, sustainability assessments, setting requirements, and goals and reporting. The key is that this is an iterative approach. First, the requirements for a sustainable supply chain are defined for all suppliers, which are then reviewed. The requirements are defined in the code of conduct, which all suppliers must acknowledge and pass on to their own supply chain. Many companies develop their own codes of conduct based on the ILO core labor standards and other standards. Standardmaps.org, for example, explains and compares the common standards and norms. Suppliers' own codes of conduct can also be recognized if the requirements are the same. And certificates and audits can be used to check whether all requirements are being met. For example, the HIC-FEM verified assessment of environmental performance or SLCP for social standards. And then we assess against the requirements we set before. So the requirements are verified through audits or preliminary self-assessments by all suppliers. Self-assessments usually take the form of questionnaires on topics such as energy consumption, chemical use, working hours, and occupational safety. The supplier responses serve only as a guide. Their own information must then be verified through audits. On-site audits objectively assess compliance with requirements and identify potential for improvement and non-compliance. However, audits are only a snapshot and cannot cover all areas. This makes it all the more important to work continuously with suppliers in a spirit of partnership to make improvements and develop further. And now I will hand over to my colleague Julia.
Yes, thank you, Kim. Thank you for walking us through the basics of supply chain management approaches. Now we will have a look at more specific benchmarks, frameworks, and software tools, for example, that can provide guidance for your individual supply chain management. The first very not basic but well-known approach or framework is the Sustainable Development Goals, the so-called SDGs. So you may all know them, I think. Those are 17 global goals adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as part of the 2030 agenda. And I think you also know that they aim to combat poverty, inequality, and climate change, and also promote sustainable development. And each goal includes specific targets to be achieved by 2030. So each company, or for companies, that means that the SDGs can provide a guidance for aligning their sustainability strategies and making a positive contribution to the global challenges. And a lot of companies do make use of that because by aligning their activities with the SDGs, companies can not only maximize their positive impact on, for example, society and environment, but also increase their credibility and competitiveness. And in addition, the SDGs enable transparent communication with stakeholders and customers who increasingly value sustainability. And that was a well-known framework, and a more concrete framework is the HIG index. It offers schemes for all stages in the supply chain, basically. So first, for example, there's the brand and retailer module, the so-called BRM module or BRM. This is targeted to brands and retailers, as the name already says. Then there is the HIG-FEM module, for example, so the more facility-related tools. There's the tool for the environmental side, the FEM, as I already said, to verify environmental data. And also there is the FSLM or SLCP module that is tailored to the social performance of a supplier or of a facility. And last but not least, there are also the product tools. There's the MSI tool, so the Material Sustainability Index, and also the product module. And both those, so the MSI and the PM, both focus on product development. And here I would also like to highlight SSP, which focuses on verifying social and working conditions. And this program, the SSP, distinguishes from other social audits as they offer one converged assessment that verifies the data, and the specialty, so to say, or the specialty here is that the facility basically owns the data and can decide which brand can access their verified data. So it's a very facility-centered approach, and it reduces audit fatigue because of the converged assessment. And then there are different software tools, as you may know. There are a lot of software tools out there. We would like to highlight Retraced here and also TrustRace, for example. Both digitalize the supplier data. You can track the materials, and also those softwares support, for example, the digital product passport readiness. So both those software tools are very comprehensive tools, support tools to manage your data, to gather your data, to analyze your data, and be on top of your supply chain management data. So it's really worth having a look at that. Yes, it just facilitates your supply chain management and ensures traceability. We know that those software tools are usually expensive, and at the beginning it might be sufficient to have your own approach, your own supply chain management approach. So here, for example, this is the environmental side of the supply chain management grid, so to say. This is a very tailor-made system to evaluate some suppliers. So if you have a small supplier base, or you only assess a certain percentage of your suppliers, you can think about building your own assessment scheme, so to say. And here you can see in the grid on the right-hand side, you can see, yes, thank you. You can see that there are different criteria, and yeah, those criteria are assessed on an individual basis, based on, for example, questionnaires or self-assessments, or also audit data or verification data. Yeah, then a criteria is assigned a score. Like here it is, the scores go from A to E. This is very tailor-made. You can adjust that based on your preferences. And then based on each, or as you can see, there are different individual scores, and based on a calculation formula lying behind um, the final score will be calculated, so to say, and then you can clearly see, okay, supplier A um, is not performing good, but supplier B is performing better, and supplier A, we are very satisfied with them. They are doing very good. So this is a basic approach to supply chain management, for example, and that can also be done on the social side. On the next slide, you can see yeah, basically the same approach, is very similar approach that can be utilized for social criteria. Yeah, then we look at fair wages, anti-discrimination, or like ethical business practices. Yeah, with a very similar, or with the similar calculation approach. Yes, and then now let's connect everything we've now discussed to the digital product passport. As you may know, one major regulation shaping this shift is the eco-design regulation. Yeah, this was adopted, sorry, in 2024, and yeah, will apply across the EU, and also including non-EU companies that are selling into the market. And one of the first sectors that needs to be compliant is the textile sector. Yes, and the eco-design regulation introduces both performance requirements and information requirements. So on the performance side, it is, for example, about durability, and on the information side, it's about traceability. And therefore, one of the key components of it is the digital product passport. And for many companies, this will become mandatory. And this, of course, requires timely action and planning. Yeah, therefore, we are showing a timeline, a brief timeline to you. So as you see, we are currently in the preparation phase. And yeah, delegated acts defining exact requirements will be published between 2026 and 2027. And from 2027 onwards, enforcement begins. So first for selected product groups, such as textiles and footwear. And by 2030, the regulation will fully apply across all sectors. So now it is really the ideal time to plan and to implement and to test necessary processes internally. So yeah, that's why we are presenting like a step-by-step guidance, what you can do. So first of all, the immediate actions. The first step should include, for example, forming a digital product passport task force, defining responsibilities and onboarding suppliers with the requested documentation and questionnaires, for example. And this phase is about establishing structure and gathering information, yeah, forming processes, yeah, getting used to that new system, so to say. And also the available data should be processed, and gaps in the data should be completed. as in the midterm actions then look like once the legal details are finalized by the European Union, you can then only, or you in the best case, you only need to close the remaining data gaps and do final tests for the processes with a small group of products, often, for example, bestsellers or high impact items. And this is also the time to partner up with, for example, your marketing team, and publish insights to customers, for example, on your website or on the product, through marketing channels and so on. And long-term actions will then include, yes, thank you. So organizations will scale the process, integrate data into like the product lifecycle management systems and the enterprise resource planning systems, and make traceability a standard part of product development and purchasing. So this also means more and more products have a digital product passport, and consumers easily can inform themselves about efforts along the whole supply chain, so in the best case. But that requires, as I said, preparation, planning, and taking actions already now. Yes, and with that, we have covered all supply chain management topics for today. Before we jump to the questions, I would like to introduce our company to you. Yes, to you. First of all, you can see a map here. On this slide, you see where our verifiers and trainers are located. You can see basically we are basically located all over the world, mainly in Europe, Asia, and Africa. We are expanding our regions on a continuous basis, and currently we have about 80 consultants and auditors who all aim to help companies become sustainable leaders in their industries. Both on the strategy side and the supply chain side, we have services to offer and can help you. Yes, so for example, on strategy side, we have extensive experience in the textile and hard goods industry and can provide climate solutions and insights, for example, but also help with setting up strategies, materiality assessments, and everything that is connected to it. And we can also train and empower your team for sustainability success and offer verification and assurance services tailored to your needs. And on the supply chain side, our global team is specialized, as we said, in social and environmental and also chemical auditing and also trainings. And our expert verifiers and trainers provide reliable worldwide support, as I already said. So we are based all over the world, in India, Vietnam, China, and so on, Tunisia. Yes, and last but not least, I would like to also show our L&S Academy platform. This is our very own learning platform. We have a couple of self-paced courses uploaded there. Here, for example, HIC FM specific course and a ZHC specific course. Very comprehensive trainings, courses that you can go through in a self-paced mode, so to say. It's really worth having a look at it. We are also expanding the number of courses on a continuous basis, so this will grow in the future.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye bye.
Bye.